Good afternoon and welcome. If you're heading to the ski slopes this winter, you've come to exactly the right place. Today's Optimum Live, we'll be discussing what sort of things you should be doing in preparation for your skiing trip. Weeks before you go, when you get there, when you're on the top of the slopes, when you wake up in the morning, and much more. Everything we'll be talking about today will put you in the best position to get the best out of your trip and for your skiing to woo your friends and family who you go with. I'm joined as ever by the MD of Tom Healy, who's the man who'll be telling us all this stuff. Afternoon, Tom.
Afternoon. Just thinking about your skiing. Have you got anything booked this winter?
No, not this winter, unfortunately. Very, very shameful.
Nothing just yet.
No, nothing. I promise you won't be just yet unless I win the lottery. Tom, when are you heading off? When are you heading off with the Snowsports team this winter?
So probably now not until the end of January. So yeah, a bit of news. We're expecting our first baby in December. So I'm off duty with the ski team until after Christmas at least. So they go away 2 weeks' time for the first competition. And then that runs all the way through pretty much up until Christmas, and then a bit of a break until mid to end of Jan, and then from then on through to sort of March time, really. Yeah, but I won't be going until after Christmas.
No. For those of you who didn't know, Tom's a member of the GB Snowsports team, and he's especially focused on the moguls team in their preparation leading up to the next Winter Olympics. So all the information you get from Tom today will come right from the top, and someone knows exactly what they're talking about. But we'll also be touching on, if you're an intermediate or a beginner, lots of tips and hints that can get you in the best position possible as well for your skiing trip this winter. Let's start before you leave, Tom. What can people be doing around now? If I'm going in January, February, March, or whatever, should I be looking at doing things now? And if so, what sort of things are we looking at specifically with regards to, exercises, stretching, flexibility?
Yeah. I think you probably, obviously the best thing to do would be to start as soon as possible, really. I think if you were to give yourself a 6-week window, that would be good. Okay. If you can give yourself more, great. But to be honest, even if you start 2-3 weeks out, it's going to be better than doing nothing at all. So give yourself 6 weeks at best. And then obviously, if you can give yourself more time than that, even better. Obviously, the big key focuses, we need to look at sort of the hips and obviously think about the knees, and obviously the ankles are the main sort of components. We can kind of think that the ankles are almost locked and almost not a lot of movement in there, just with the fact that the boots are on and you're pretty much fixed into that position. Yeah. So we can kind of think more towards the knees and the hips. And there's some real good things to do, some flexibility stuff that's real simple. And if we think about skiing and both skis sort of traveling together, so they move sort of together as one almost.
That's the idea anyway.
Yeah, that's if you're any good. Mine are often like this, just pointing together at each other. Being able to rotate through your knees, which is a strange thing to think about, but we normally often think about the knees sort of just hinging, so heel to bum and then kicking your leg out in front. Yeah. But in actual fact, the knees will hinge, so you'll be able to get a little bit of rotation. So I'll try and show you a little bit now. I might actually need to drop that camera a little bit. Okay. So if I don't know how well you can see this. Let me try that. My foot here, that movement there, is actually coming from my knee.
Yeah.
So if you're to sit on a bed or sit on a chair, make sure that your hips are still, your hips don't move, but you can actually start to mobilize through the knee joint itself. Now, that might be a little bit easier if you put something like a football between your feet and turn your feet to the left and then turn your feet all the way to the right and keep the ball fixed between your feet. It helps you to then not to kind of kick your feet up and down, which would be coming from your hips. And that motion there is really useful for skiing, because a lot of the time your skis will pivot, and as they pivot, that might not come from directly your hips. It might come from your knees a little bit as well. So that's one real simple thing to do. And then a lot of things. So yoga's great. So yoga's a really good thing to kind of get hips moving, and mobilizing through there as well. And obviously up through the chain and up into your back as well. Yoga's great for that.
Yeah. Stretching. Any specific stretching exercises?
Yeah, I would say a lot of the focus would be around sort of your quads and your hammies. So both of those are quite important and quite key for skiing itself, and you're going to spend a lot of time using those muscles during that trip. So if you can get them prepped, and even whilst you're away, if you can get them prepped beforehand, and then obviously continue some of this stuff whilst you're away, brilliant. So one real good one to do is if you stand on a step, so toes on the edge of the step. I'll see if I can demo this one again. So toes on the edge of the step, and as you're on the step, bend your knees.
Okay.
Okay, heels will drop below the height of the step, but get your weight back so your heels will start to sink below the step.
Okay, yeah.
It'll keep your knees bent. Okay, you can hold on to something, you can touch something here. This probably looks a little bit like a skiing position, really.
Yeah.
You've got two big muscles in your calf, your gastroc and your soleus muscle, and that'll target a little bit more your soleus muscle, which is massively involved in that position when you're skiing. And can often get quite tight and stiff. So if you can get ahead of the game, do that before you go. If not, just do it whilst you're away. Another really easy one is almost just stretching your quads, and you can do that real simple, like heel to bum, and just pull here. Or you could do that lay down on the floor and give that a little bit more of a stretch with something like a towel around your foot, and sort of to pull almost the towel over sort of the top of your shoulder into that area as well.
Okay. And you just started talking about the strength in your calves there. Let's move on to that, building the strength in the right muscles and in the right areas. Where do we need to be strong, and what sort of things should we be doing to make that happen?
Yeah, following on from last week, really, about sort of injury prevention and also some work that you can do beforehand, and trying to reduce the risk of injuries, or particularly knee injuries. Quads and hammies come into it again, like we talked about before, but we need to work on them in slightly different ways sometimes. So some real simple things you can do at the gym, so like your leg extensions, your leg press, pretty routine sort of mundane exercises, but done on a machine are great. Building the strength is important, but also using that functionality as well. So making it a little bit more up on your feet rather than just using the machines to get that strength. So a couple of those. One's going to be a single leg squat. So you can sit down onto a box, tap your bum and come straight back up again. That's quite a nice easy one to do. If you can't do two legs, what I would suggest is go down on one, touch your bum, and then come back up on two. Down on one, touch your bum, come back on two. And if that's too challenging, just do two. Touch your bum and back up. You can always add a weight here or some dumbbells in your hands and start to add a bit of resistance into that. Or you could even offset your feet and go one closer to the box, one further away, so you put more weight through one side as you start to lower down. Okay. You've got the other leg there just to help as well.
How many reps will we be looking at for that sort of exercise, Tom?
Yeah, 4 sets of 8.
Okay.
And it should be challenging for those 8. So if it's not challenging, you either need to increase the challenge by taking a foot away, or increasing the difficulty, or holding something to add a little bit of resistance to the exercise itself.
Okay. And the strength, Tom, in our calves and hamstrings, etc., that we can build up before we go. Just say a little bit about how they protect the joints. I'm specifically referring to the knees in this situation.
Yeah. So if you look at the where the hamstrings come from, so the hamstring muscles come from pretty much your backside and up near your hip, and travel down and attach either side of your knee. So you've got 2 hamstrings on the inside of your knee, and you've got 1 hamstring on the outside of your knee, and they attach just below the joint. So they attach on the lower part of your leg. Now, their main role is to pull that tibia backwards. Okay, so they're going to give some stability to not let that lower part of the leg shift and shunt too far forwards. So they're vitally important. And then you've got your quadricep muscles, which come down from the front of your hip, down your thigh, over the top of your kneecap, and into the lower part of your leg. Now, their main role is obviously to kick your leg out or try and maintain that sort of squat position. And obviously, you're going to spend a lot of time in that squatting action whilst you're skiing. Pretty much the whole time you're going to be in some sort of a squat. So those quadricep muscles are really key. And then your calves again. So you've got those 2 big muscles in your calf, one short of your knee. So that comes from your Achilles, and then up just behind the knee. And then you've got the other one, the gastrocnemius, which goes over the top of the knee. And again, kind of like crosses over with the hamstrings to give some support at the back there as well. So all 3 are quite important. You can add your glutes into the mix as well there, and they have an effect on controlling almost the direction the knee's pointing. So whether it's pointing straight on or kind of dropping inside towards the other leg. But yeah, really important muscles.
as an old man, Tom, what is it that makes your backache the next morning when you get up after some skiing? Obviously your legs are really busy all the time and you are bending over and stuff like that, so it's fairly straightforward. But what does give you that sort of when you get well up the next morning?
I think a lot of that is almost down to technique and also conditioning as well before you go. So again, you're obviously going to be sort of in this type of bent knee position, and you're going to be somewhere here. So your chest is going to be looking down to the floor, but you need to lift your head up to see where you're going. And ordinarily doing that, you can end up arching that lower part of your back. So some real simple exercises or some drills to do here are almost what we call hinging. So if you set your feet up, bend your knees ever so slightly and almost run a dumbbell, kettlebell down towards the floor, but keep your back nice and straight. So it's really important that your back's flat and that you're not sort of rounding through here.
Yeah.
It's nice and straight. Head goes down towards the floor, and just let that kettlebell or dumbbell just run between your legs.
Yeah.
And slowly stand back up again. You'll feel a pinch point in your hamstrings, and at that point, it's pretty much time to come back up and stand back up.
Right. Okay. Interesting. You just touched on the endurance levels there, so let's finish off with that today. You can be as strong as you like and as flexible as you like. If your fitness levels are poor, you're going to be knackered at 10 o'clock after your first couple of runs. So what sort of levels do people need to be at? And if you can, because you have done a lot of work with the people who are going for Olympic medals, tell us what the difference is between what they do and what a beginner going for their first trek might do.
Yeah, I think it's similar. If you think almost like Formula One, those guys drive around a track at silly speeds for a long period of time, and the concentration is key. And it's the same thing for skiing. Like it's generally maybe 2 or 3 minutes on a slope, get to the bottom, get a lift, 2 or 3 minutes on the slope, and back and forth. But those 2 or 3 minutes quickly add up, and as soon as that does, and you start to get fatigued, lose concentration, and that's often when injuries start to happen. Sort of, you often hear like last run of the day, or it was last run of the holiday, or things like that, and people are just tired and fatigued and overworked. So the cardiovascular level of fitness is really important, and that plays a massive part in the concentration levels. Same thing in football and rugby. You'll see loads of points scored in the last 10 minutes of games because players are fatigued and concentration goes, and they can't just do those last little bits. Yeah. So that's really important. Now, during the summer, we do a lot of testing with the GB guys that we work with, and one of those tests is a WattBike test. So we do 3 tests on the WattBike. We do a 3-minute test, which gives us an indication as to how much endurance they've got. And we could do the 20-minute one, but we tend to just do the 3-minute just because it's a little bit shorter, a bit more specific to our moguls guys who only do 30-second runs. So we do a 30-second, we do, a 3-minute, 30-second, and a 6-second test. The 6-second test, a little bit of info. They achieve normally about 1,200 watts. Okay, so that's the peak power. So that's their top score. Their 3-minute test, we tend to aim for about 350 watts on average for that 3 minutes. And then the 30-second test, we look at more the VO2 max scores off that. So I actually can't remember what they are off the top of my head. But if you were to base some of your training around some intervals, I would say intervals are better than going on long endurance rides. The long endurance rides, you need some of that fitness. But if you've only got a short period of time, I would almost do interval-based training because it's going to be more effective and similar to what you're doing in terms of cruising around for a little bit, then stopping, getting on a lift, having a coffee, whatever it may be, and then cruising around again. So you might need 5-minute bursts. And you can do that on a bike. Bikes are great for that. Low impact, low joint sort of irritation. And you can put the work in quite quickly and see the results quite quickly on a bike.
It's interesting how we need different levels of fitness and certain types of fitness, different sports, isn't it? Just what you're talking about there. It reminds me of a friend of mine who, going back a few years, was a professional rugby player, came to play 5-a-side football with me and my mates one night and was knackered after about 20 minutes. Because the 5-a-side is consistently non-stop running, and rugby is based for massive bursts of power, stop, 90-second wait, and we're off again.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the 5-minute sort of go on a bike is ideal for coming down the slopes.
100%. And it's working the same sorts of muscles. It's obviously working your legs. You can go on long endurance rides, and maybe that might extend to maybe a half-an-hour bike ride. And that's good to just kind of have a good base level of endurance. But if you can repeat 5-minute intervals and hit the same watts as you were doing on the first one, really impressive. So a little test might be go and do a 30-second test on the WattBike, which is preset on there, and then try and match that 30 seconds and try and sustain that every interval that you do.
Okay. Lovely, thanks, Tom. Let's finish on where's the best ski resort you've ever been to and why? Then we'll wrap it up.
I think
probably
that can be
either. Let's have you in your role as professional role, with the GB team, and you as a punter going to some skiing yourself.
I think as a punter, the probably best one I've been is probably the Three Valleys, Val Thorens, somewhere like that is probably the best. And then I think probably. Just because of the vastness of skiing, there's so many areas to go and so much distance to cover and variety of slopes. I think probably somewhere like Kazakhstan was probably up there. Do you know?
Is it really?
Interesting little place to go in terms of location, but it was good. The skiing was good. Not loads of it. And to be honest, most of the places I've been so far, we've not had loads of actual pistes. It's been very much a hill, a mogul run, and that's about it. There's not much else there. So I liked Kazakhstan. I like the culture. Somewhere different to explore, and somewhere different to what we're used to in sort of normal.
And that was last year, yeah, Kazakhstan.
Yeah, last year. Yeah, really
fantastic.
Good. Yeah, really good.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, good. Did you want to touch on any nutrition stuff, Martin?
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, sorry, good idea. Really good idea. Carry on. What's your tips on that?
Yeah, I think sort of often gets probably overlooked in the morning of like a coffee and a croissant before you go out. And I think probably you almost need to think, it's strange. It's probably not a holiday in a strange way. It's not your typical holiday where you can sit and relax and obviously to get the most out of what you're doing and also to probably enjoy it the most is trying to have a little bit more for breakfast. So your fruit, your yogurt, you might have ham and cheese baguette, that type of thing for breakfast would be excellent. And have that maybe with, again, a coffee and a croissant. And then obviously fueling on the mountain, like there's so many options, which are great. Generally speaking, the food's great on the mountains. But yeah, you need to be hitting some carbs and trying to get some protein in there as well. So something like some sort of spaghetti bolognese, a pizza. There's normally loads of good options here. And then trying to in the evenings as well, same sort of thing. So again, trying to replace those carbs that you've lost during the day, which are going to help the next day. And obviously putting some protein back in to help repair. So there's loads of good stuff you can do in that sense as well. Eggs are great for breakfast. Eggs on toast or scrambled eggs, sorts of things are great as well. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the sugar and calorie intakes at night through barley and hops. There is an excuse, Tom, to have some calories.
Yeah, there is. Honestly, there is. Squash grapes are great as well because they're an antioxidant, so even better, Martin. Have the squash grapes, not the hops.
Let's finish on that note, Tom. Thanks a lot for joining us today, folks. This is the third in a series of 5 skiing specials that we're doing live once a week, so we'll be back next week. Last week we spoke about how to reduce the risk of specifically knee injuries whilst on the slope, so check that out on our YouTube channel. And in week 1, Tom went through in more detail his life with the GB Snowsport team and places he's been and how he got the job and what's coming up in the near future. So please look at that. There's also all sorts of videos to help you through all sorts of sports and injuries. One that made me think of today's chat is the one we did on sciatica several months ago. So have a look on our YouTube and you'll find all those sorts of things to check out. Let us know what you think and put any comments in the comment section and we'll be able to answer them. If you'd like to know a little bit more about Optimum Derby and what Tom can do, Tom and his team there's the website. Please go and have a look at that. If you're watching us on LinkedIn today, thanks for joining us. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe and you'll know when we're back on. And if you'd like to get in touch with Tom for some ideas or some treatment on your own skiing injuries or plans for this winter, Tom's email is just there. That leaves me, Martin Croson, to say thanks to you very much for joining us today here on Optimum Derby Live. Tom, thanks a lot for joining us.
No problems. Good to catch up.
And hopefully we'll see you all next week, Wednesday, I do believe, next week, back to our regular day, but an earlier time, which we'll confirm on the Optimum Derby socials over the next couple of days. So thanks a lot for joining us again today, folks. All the best, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.